Thanks, Kris. I'm Mark Alexander-Erber. I'm the CEO and founder of Golden Robot Global Entertainment, where we've got 12 record labels around the world. And we're working with Kim, who's based down in Melbourne, and she is overseeing a new touring arm that she's calling Robot Rocks. And that'll be taking primarily our Australian, not all of them, but part of our Australian roster, and touring them around Australia, basically in 2023, which is fantastic.
Beautiful. Sounds exciting, mate. Thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So before we get into this actual touring side of things, guys, tell us a bit more about Golden Robot Records.
Well, we've been going about 8 years now. We've fast become one of the leading independent labels in the world. We've got 12 labels in the group. We've got around 500 bands. Some of the biggest names now in the world, with Filter and The Answer and 3 members of Guns N' Roses, LA Guns, Rat, and Faster Pussycat, those kind of bands. Plus a huge slew of, great Aussie singer-songwriters like, Nick Barker, Johnny Casino from Asteroid B612. We've worked with Steve Kilby from The Church. We've worked with a whole lot of different bands, Mark of Cain. We've got a huge back catalogue. We've got new bands that have joined that are just could be the next big thing. We just signed an incredible band out of New Zealand called Shepherd's Reign. That could be the next Sepultura. So we're right across all fronts, from country music, hard rock, heavy rock, metal, punk, middle of the road, old school rock, classic rock, etc., etc. And mate, we're an Australian label out there kicking ass all over the world, especially Europe, UK, and America.
That was fantastic. So you're planning a series of shows next year, which Kim, as you say, is overseeing, called Robot Rocks Present. So tell us a bit more about that.
Kim, take it over.
Well, a couple of the bands came to me and asked me what I thought about putting some shows together for everyone that's on the roster with Golden Robot Records. There seems to be a lot of festivals going on and you just can't get on them. So we thought together we'll put our own shows on and just go around Australia.
Right.
Which is awesome initiative.
It is fantastic. And the first one is at the Bendigo Hotel in Melbourne on January the 7th, featuring Cicadastone, the Vendettas, Shotgun Mistress, Gen 2, The Exiles, and Mark E from the Mercy Kill. So tell us a bit more about that one and why you're launching it there and then.
Well, Dave Collins from the Bendigo asked me if I had a couple of bands that were interested in doing a few shows next year. That's where it sort of come about. And I thought, well, why not use the Bendigo Hotel? Everyone's played there. And we all just get together and see if we can pull it off. This will be the first one, see if we can pull it off. And if it goes really well, there's some dates for Adelaide, Sydney, and all the bands want to get to Queensland and just go around Australia and alternate the lineup of who's headlining and who's opening, so everyone gets a chance to, I guess, utilise each band's fan base and just work together on the label rather than relying on other people that just basically don't give a shit.
Yeah, fair, cool. And then when you say like you're going to be taking it to all these different states, like are you going to have, say, with the Melbourne one, like are they all Victorian bands on that, and the Adelaide one's going to be all Adelaide bands, or are you going to try and mix them up a bit?
We're going to try and mix them up a bit so everyone gets a chance. I mean, there's not all of them can travel. It can't always be the same lineup. So that's why I've asked a whole bunch of bands so I can get around Australia and not just have the Melbourne ones.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about the bands chosen for the Melbourne show. Like, we'll start with Cicadastone.
Well, they're, what would you call them, Mark? Sort of grunge?
Yeah, they're if you like, Alice in Chains,
Yeah.
or, Soundgarden, that sort of throwback to the 90s, early 2000s. Cicadastone's right down your alley.
Yeah, cool. And how about the Vendettas?
Aussie rock and roll, mate.
Aussie rock, beautiful. Shotgun Mistress?
Bit heavier.
They're more heavy.
Yeah, bit heavier. Quintessentially Australian. Great musicianship. They're making some headway. I'm looking forward to their next album. And very professional. Good bunch of blokes.
Yeah, cool.
Stonetrip are on this one.
Stonetrip as well,
Yeah.
very good. So tell us,
Yeah.
we've had them, featured them in heavy a bit in the past, but tell us more about them.
Go for it, Kim.
Well, they just re-signed with Golden Robot.
Yeah, they just re-signed. Great band.
Got an album coming out.
The good thing about the boys, is Mick and Mark, who are the two main guys in the band. They really are exceptional songwriters. They're very they got the finger on the pulse. These guys can write 25 songs in a weekend, and 23 of them are excellent. You know what I mean? They're really on fire with what they're doing. They can cross over in genres. This new album, look, they did very well with their singles and EPs up to now, but we're really going to take it over to the UK for them. I can see this working in the UK, especially. So it's very exciting, mate. It's very exciting to have that sort of caliber, and I think that's why we started this. I mean, Golden Robot started with one band. Most people that know Golden Robot know the story, how it started with my son, who was on Australia's Got Talent about 10 years ago. And he is a fantastic drummer. And when he was finished with that show, I didn't want him to become a novelty. I wanted him to have a legacy. So we put him together with some guys from Noiseworks and a couple of other bands, and they made an incredible album. And nobody gave a shit about rock and roll. So I thought, stuff this, I'll do it myself. So we started with his band Moon, and it's really been a steady, gradual climb to where we are, but it's always had the same ethos. As big as we've got 90 odd staff around the world working, London, LA, New York, Germany, Paris, France, etc. As big as we've become, we have never lost sight of that ethos, and that is to take great Aussie bands to the world. And yes, I've got plenty of American and European bands, but the ethos of the Aussie bands and letting them capitalize on the structure we've created is super important. And so what Kim's really doing is going back to the basics of what rock and roll is all about. 20, 30 years ago, Midnight Oil, Cold Chisel, In Excess, they do something like 500 shows a year.
Yeah.
That's all they do. And that philosophy, unfortunately, isn't there anymore, not because the bands don't want to do it, but because the bands don't have the opportunity. So what Kim is creating is opportunity. And that's why she's got so many bands that are putting their hands up to go, yeah, I want to be part of this, because there is that opportunity being created. And what I'm thinking ahead now is, once Kim does several shows, she will start to see the dynamics of the bands, and she'll start to see how they work together. And then what we can do as a label, and we've always been very entrepreneurial. I'm always thinking outside the box. We're involved with boxing and UFC, and we're involved with sports, taking our music into sports, etc. We do things very differently to other labels. So keeping that entrepreneurial hat on, I find that we can put ourselves in a position here where we can take 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of these bands and take that tour to Europe. Kim can jump on a plane with them, take them to London, and do the Golden Robot tour around Europe or America or Canada, etc. And then at the same time, do compilation albums, with 2 songs from each band on it, and drop, a 12-track album with these bands on it, and sort of create a buzz back on the back of what Kim's doing now. So there's plenty of ways we can do things. It's just that you need to start at that embryonic level, and that's what she's doing. And I think it's fantastic, and she has full support from us.
Very good. And many of your artists have got new music coming out of the new year as well, mate. So can you run through some of those artists?
Oh, wow. Look, without it in front of me, it's just such a big list. I know, for example, Nick Barker's got a brand new album coming out, which is going to be absolutely brilliant. There's chat of a new Asteroid B612 album coming out. Filter's got a new album coming out. The Answer, Faster Pussycat. I'm working on a legacy album with Stephen Pearcy, which is about 25 tracks from Rat. LA Guns has got a new album out that's coming out next year. We've got a huge roster with lots and lots of albums next year. I'll be working on the new Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes album. We did 2 songs with Frank, and he's huge in Europe, and the UK, huge. And his management team is also the same management team as Nick Cave, Radiohead offshoot band Smile, and PJ Harvey. So I'm working closely with them on other things. So watch this space for that. But there's going to be some Golden Robot's going to take another level, go up another level next year with the things that we're working on. So it's very important that we're in a position where not only can you reach for the stars with all this, but you've got to have your groundwork done. And I can't take any credit for what Kim's doing because she's done it completely on her own, putting this together. So you need to have both sides handled, you need to have the groundwork done, and then you need to be able to put the ladder on it and climb. So with these albums and these bands and everything we're doing next year, that's all fantastic. But the groundwork that is there is essential to the company.
Yeah. So along those lines, Kim, like, where does your motivate? Like, this is a lot to take on, mate, and good on you for doing it. But where does your motivation come from to do something like this?
Well, for me, 2 of my bands, Gen 2's on the shows, I manage them. They're signed to X-Ray Records,
which is part of Golden Robot.
Okay, yeah.
Golden Robot, X-Ray, yeah. And they want to get on. They've met a fair few bands that are on the label. They like it. They want to get involved in it all. And I used to manage a couple of the others that are on these shows as well. It's just me wanting to as a manager, wanting to see my band succeed. But I like to go out and see all these bands. I want to see them. And there's nothing out there to go see.
And you know what? Let me just jump in there, Kim. Sorry to interrupt you. That's what Kim's strength is. She actually is a mad music head. Right. And we met when she is a lifetime Horsehead fan. And I put Horsehead back together about 2 years ago and got all this stuff on digital. We did a massive box set. Everything came out on vinyl, etc., etc. So that's how we met, and then that culminated in a massive show just before COVID, like a month before COVID, at the Corner Hotel. So we put a big bow around that, and we were very happy with it. But Kim's love for rock and roll is something to be admired, and my team has that. Everyone, I went with my GM to there's a few of us went, including my GM McKellar, to Nick Cave last Friday night, and she was in tears for half the concert. I was nearly in tears. It was unbelievable. It was just so amazing, and that's the kind of people that are really underpinning the Australian music scene in their own way, doing what they can do. All of us have different reach and different power, but in our own ways, we're making a difference. And what Kim is doing is making a difference to rock and roll in Australia, and we're all doing that in our own way. And I think that that's a message that shouldn't be lost. And I think that, the punters have got to get behind this, because even if you don't know any of those bands that are playing on the night, they should get down, because it's important to promote and support Australian music on every level.
Yep. Damn straight. So just say there's any younger bands out there listening to this, like, how does a band go about getting signed to someone like Golden Robot? Like, do they have to put their runners on the board first and then approach you, or wait for you to approach them?
Look, it's a good question. I do a regular spot on a radio show in Adelaide, and we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And I'm very happy to give my opinion and my time on it. Basically, a band has got to do 3 things. You've got to use Spotify as your calling card, your business card. Spotify's got to be up to date. Whether you love it or hate it, Spotify's what people go to see your numbers. If you're getting booked on a show, if you're getting, you want a new manager, whatever it is, they're going to look at Spotify. So your pictures, your bio, everything's got to be right. Secondly, you've got to have your socials right. And most importantly, you've got to have your Instagram, your Facebook, and you can't post once a month and think that you're doing a good job. You've got to post every day, and you've got to interact with your fans. You've got to keep it fresh. Yeah. And thirdly, you've got to get out there and play. And you've got to get out there and get amongst it and play overseas and play here and, whatever you can afford. But if you have those three things going for you, look, mate, I've got bands I work with that have got 1 billion streams with a B, bands that have got millions of streams. I've got bands that have got that negative, that minus 1,000. So we work with all sorts of bands. But, we've got a bit tougher as time has gone on. I found a band, or our A&R, we've got a big A&R department, and I had a meeting only 2 weeks ago with a band that I really, really liked. I thought they were fantastic, but the socials were rubbish. They're not touring, and they had a little bit of a Axl Rose attitude before they were able to be Axl Rose. So sort of, look, go away and work on this and come back in a year. And they can tell me to fuck off, and that's absolutely fine. Can I swear, mate?
Of course you can, mate. I just make note of that, so I check the right box when I publish it.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, they can tell us to fuck off and mind our own business, but that's absolutely fine too. I will. I'll go away and do my own thing and have plenty of other bands I can bring on. But you've got to have those fundamentals right. Once you have those fundamentals right, like, I don't care if you've got no streams, but if I can see you giving it a go and you're out there playing, you got your Spotify and your socials right, then we're going to give you a go. I'm behind, especially in the UK at the moment, we're behind some incredible bands that could be the next Oasis, for example. And the same here in Australia. Our roster in Australia over COVID grew, because I wasn't concentrating that much on Australia. I was concentrating on overseas because it's such a big market. But we've certainly got back into things over the last few years here. And I think next year there will be more of a concentration on what's going on with a local roster. I mean, Kim brings me bands. Kim's sort of the unofficial gatekeeper for some of these Australian bands. They come to her, and then she comes to me in the A&R department. But I find, if someone wants to get amongst it, on our website, you can go in through the contact page, and you can send in, you can certainly send in your demos, and you can send an email or whatever. And we do speak to people, and we do get back to people, and we do give people, we critique if it's not right. We're not just one of those labels that ignores people. We want to be accessible no matter what size you get. I've always believed you need to be accessible. However, don't apply through fucking Instagram or Facebook, or, keep it professional.
Yeah, no worries. All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with both of you. It's an absolute pleasure. But the first Robot Rocks Presents is on January the 7th at the Bendigo Hotel. So, Kim, how do people find out more information or buy tickets?
Well, tomorrow the link on Eventbrite goes out. We've also got Matt from Cicadastone has done all the promo. He's made a little video that'll all go out on Friday, on all socials, on each band's profile. And yeah, just like that's how we're just going to do it, and just bam. And then with Heavy Magazine, we've got a couple of other things going on. We're just going to see how the first one goes, and then chop and change how we think we should put stuff in and take out.
Yeah, just adjust. But the commitment, I have to say, the commitment is there to do a series of these, and then we can tweak and change it as we go and see what rolls out. But hats off to Kim for the idea. And, touring bands, this is the thing. There hasn't been a label that's toured their own bands in a long time. The last label that really did it properly, and I'm looking at a picture of Bon Scott over there, was Albert's, where they took their own, we've worked with Rose Tattoo for, I think, 5 albums now. Actually, there's an album we're releasing. We've got a remastered version of Beats of a Single Drum on limited edition vinyl, CD, and digital coming out. Yeah. But they were the last real label to do it like that and touring their own bands. So, you think it happens a lot. It actually doesn't. One or two might go out. What's that?
It should happen a hell of a lot more.
It should. 1 or 2 might go out, but not 6 to 10. That's for sure.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Well, again, Kim and Mark, thanks very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully this
Thanks, Kris.
anything Heavy can do to support it, let me know. And we'll be behind his 100%.